Live everywhere on netrootsradio.com. David Waldman, Kagro, in the morning. Now, here's David Waldman.
Hey, good morning, everybody. How you doing? It is Thursday, July 15th, 2021. Much to catch up on today. Lots happening. We forgot to announce that yesterday was Bastille Day, which is amazing to me, but because France isn't a part of NAFTA, I guess, it's not on my calendar. It's not an all-purpose international calendar. It's just sort of NAFTA-focused is what I always call it. And so, sorry about that, French people. I wonder how many people are listening in France. We get statistics on that from Libsyn. They'll tell you how many people are downloading your program in France. Maybe we'll check in on that while Greg is taking care of other things like, maybe there was sort of kind of almost fear among the top generals in this country that a coup might take place sometime between the failure of Donald Trump to win re-election and his removal from office on January 20th. But, not that you would know or anything. I don't know. I have my doubts about that. Of course, we'll be talking about that. And, of course, we'll be talking more about the fact that this comes out now, and only now, in an exclusive excerpt from the explosive post-election, post-everything book by more Washington Post writers who I guess didn't feel like it was necessary to put any of this in the Washington Post when it happened. But maybe they found out later and then just thought, well, gosh, we need a hook, like the reporting of the publication of our book to bring these things out. That's upsetting a lot of people, and understandably so. Let's see, what else is it? It's also, of course, the Ides of July, which no one need beware, or at least no one has ever warned anyone to look out for it before, but that's the case on the 15th of a month with 31 days on it, and my brother Mark's birthday. So happy birthday to Mark. You'll remember it forever as the day you woke up to find out that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, well, maybe you found out last night. Maybe you were up late last night, finding out that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff feared a Reichstag moment. That's, I think, the big pull quote that everybody's going with this morning. And I don't know, maybe one day there'll be a committee that looks into this thing or something and asks him, if you feared a Reichstag moment and the actual Reichstag was under attack, when did you think did you have any ideas about intervening? Like I'm saying this morning, imagine fearing a Reichstag moment and then doing nothing on January 6th. Like, I don't know. There's sir, there's rabid crowds attacking Washington, D.C. institutions. Well, where are they now? What's the target? Our Reichstag. Well, we should let this, let's see how this plays out and decide what to do. I mean, remember that the Pentagon was asked to send National Guard troops to do something, to put down the January 6th insurgency, and they were like, well, I don't know, optics, yada, yada. Now, a couple of things could have happened, but just to throw out a few of the options, and we'll discuss them with Greg Dworkin when he arrives, and we'll discuss them with you as you learn the details about all this. One thing that could have happened, of course, is they might have said, we really need to send troops, and they somehow inside the Pentagon debated it and said, well, what if we send troops and they switch sides and they join the pro-Trump crowds? Because remember, Trump actually did want to have the National Guard deployed, at least for one reason. He wanted them to go and protect the insurgents and make sure that the police and armed forces didn't clear them out of the way of their goal. So I suppose that was a situation. I guess you have to say, well, unless we're 100% sure of what's going to happen when we send troops, maybe we just shouldn't send troops. There's that. Then, of course, there's the possibility that they did want to send troops and they gave orders to send troops, but apparently we had a potential wrinkle in all of the plans, which is that Mike Flynn's, notorious spy Mike Flynn's brother, was apparently somewhere in the chain of command, although it's never really been firmly established, to my satisfaction, exactly what his role in that chain of command was. Just that he was there, and he has since been transferred to, he wasn't exactly booted out to like an Alaskan, radar station or anything like they did at the end of Stripes with the captain. He's commander of the Pacific forces at this point, which on the one hand, that's, I think, a big promotion, I guess, from being the guy who sits in the Pentagon and decides whether or not the National Guard should go and save the Capitol. But on the other hand, is probably as far away from the Capitol as you can send him without, deciding to just kick him out of the armed forces entirely. So I don't know. He may have played a hand in it and may have slowed things down. Or ultimately, we may find that General Milley and others who are, I suppose, looking to look like they were against this whole thing from the beginning and were going to do whatever they could to make sure, as they say in the other pull quote, that they will not, effing succeed in overthrowing the government. Maybe they really didn't do any of that, but then when they were being interviewed for tell-all books, they said, it seems obvious now that history is going to frown on this whole episode. We should get on the right side of it, even if we weren't on the right side necessarily then, and just say, well, we worried about this, but I mean, I don't know how you plan that out and then say, won't people ask me why I didn't do anything? But I don't know. I guess we'll have to wait for details to get ironed out, maybe in a committee, 5 minutes at a time, alternating between Democrats and Republicans. All right, so Greg Dworkin is here. We'll alternate for 5 minutes at a time between me and him, except I won't get my 5 minutes. So good morning, Greg. How are you?
Well, they're all adding up. What's going to happen. Like at some point, okay, I'm reclaiming all of my time. And you don't get to talk for from 3
yesterday.
Weeks.
I'm reclaiming stuff from weeks ago.
Yeah.
You took away from me. All right.
I thought I would preface the remarks about the insurrection with a couple of pundit comments here.
Okay.
Of note, 2 of them at least. Larry Sabato from University of Virginia,
yes.
Who's a noted political scientist, crystal ball, et cetera, been around for a long time, said the horror stories about Trump will continue as more books and memoirs are published. How can anybody be surprised by the revelations? Trump was and is a maniac, the single greatest mistake ever made by the American electorate, which is true.
Clear that up for us, Larry.
The thing is, though, he's gotten complaints from the cancel culture people. Remember, the cancel culture people are folks who complain about cancel culture and then try to cancel everybody.
Yes, right.
And so they called his university as if this was going to do any good for a tenured professor and said, he can't talk about stuff like this on Twitter. He's too biased.
Right.
And like everybody who has ever known him, he's been around for a long, long, long time. I mean, this is like complaining about Woodward. Said, he's been doing this for 30 years, and what are you talking about?
Yeah, basically, right. We were reading just a little bit the other day about this is like the ultimate both sides are here. And, worrying about him being a vicious partisan. Although I like his being a noted pundit. I'm going to use that and split that up. I'll use that later. I'm a no Ted pundit. I think there should be no Ted Cruz news allowed. And we can get rid of him. So right. I think,
or a notation pundit. Larry Sabato is so famous that Ben Tribbett, one of the very, very good local Virginia political operatives, for a long time had a pseudonymous account called Not Larry Sabato.
Right. I'm not that guy.
Because I am partisan. I'm going to tell you what's going on here.
Yeah.
That's one of the reasons why it's so funny.
That's a great point. That's true. I had, I don't know, somehow forgotten that. I forgot to bring that up, certainly. That's an excellent point. That's just, I don't know. Everybody knows Larry Sabato. I don't think we need to introduce him.
Right.
So it's crazy. Yeah.
So it's crazy. But then another pundit was Joyce White Vance, who is a legal eagle, and was commenting on George Conway's full quote.
Okay.
From that book that you were talking about. Milley described a stomach-churning feeling as he listened to Trump's untrue complaints of election fraud, drawing a comparison to the 1933 attack on Germany's parliament building that Hitler used as a pretext to establish a Nazi dictatorship. Now, there's a lot to say about that particular quote. One of them is that all the complaints about, you keep comparing him to Hitler, that's ridiculous. Well, actually, Milley compared him to Hitler.
Well,
here,
what does he know?
In print.
Yeah. Right.
The same way that everybody else was. Yeah, but you did it too early, so it didn't count.
Right.
Oh, God.
Well,
really?
I don't know. Yeah, we didn't have enough stripes.
the DFHs knew all about the Iraq War at the time it happened, but it didn't count because we were right too early.
Yeah, well, it keeps happening.
Yeah, it does keep happening. But anyway, skipping that,
Yes.
the thing that struck me is that whenever you read something like this about a figure like Milley,
Yes, every day.
you have to remember, yes, every day, including when you read about it in newspaper articles,
Right.
that the people who are writing the pieces are accurately quoting the folks who are giving the little pull quotes. I mean,
Yes,
that's
they are
not in
saying
dispute.
That's
and
true.
so there's no reason for hurt feelings on the part of
think.
reporters when we complain about it,
Yeah.
because they say, I accurately wrote down what he said. That's true. But you didn't tell us
That's not
why
the
he's
complaint.
saying it.
Yeah.
General
Or
Milley
when.
was disparaged for showing up at that show cleaning of the square, Lafayette Square, so Trump
Yeah.
could have his photo up at the Bible over at the church across the square.
Right. It was June 1st, I think.
So
2020.
he had a lot of rehab to do on his image.
Yes.
And when he gives interviews, a lot of this is going to be image rehab. So if he comes across as a hero in this particular telling of the tale that he is telling,
Yes.
just keep that in mind. It's not that he's
that's a good
wrong.
point.
It's not that that's wrong. But, there's a lot. Jared and Ivanka pushed back hard on a lot of Trump's things, according to Jared and Ivanka.
Yeah. Or friends like Jared Barron. And all right, yeah.
So,
I got
just keep that in mind when you read these things. So
Good point.
I appreciate the fact that Milley saw it the way a lot of us saw it, but I'm not ready to call him a hero yet for some of the very points that you were talking about in terms of, I know what you said, what did you do? But what Joyce Vance points out, and let's contrast with some of the truth tellers that actually showed up at impeachment hearings.
Okay.
Right? It's disturbing that this wasn't presented as testimony during impeachment too, said Joyce Vance.
Yes.
It could have disrupted Trump's narrative and spared the country much of its current pain, as well as the prospect of having the still unconvicted former president win a future election. So during that impeachment, the second impeachment, when it really mattered, where were you?
That's true. And yeah, where were the people who should have called you and asked what's up, General? Yeah, I mean, maybe people didn't know that story yet. I don't know, but yeah, certainly.
Contrast with Colonel Vindman.
Yes,
who did testify.
He managed to get to the impeachment managers and tell them, yeah, I actually have
I have stuff to say. You're right. So for all of the Trump people who, in retrospect, did all of these brave and wonderful things behind the scenes, where were you when it counted? And that
really
includes you,
don't know.
General Milley. I appreciate the fact that you were on the right side of not wanting to go along with an insurrection, and that you saw clear-eyed what might happen, and all your friends were telling you the same thing, and that's great. But where were you when it mattered?
Yeah, that is a good question. I wonder if they actually considered ever. Well, I don't know whether anybody knew his story or not, and that's a bad thing too. But yeah, I, on the one hand, it was like, well, as evidence goes, maybe it's not the greatest in the world to say, well, I really thought we were going to have a coup that day. Well, you know,
and so that's why I
interesting,
pre-positioned
but-
troops so that this insurrection didn't happen. Oh wait,
Yeah.
you didn't do that, did you?
no, well, not only that, and then you didn't post position them either.
Yeah, and you didn't make it clear that the chain of command was such that if there were a problem, there'd be a quick response.
Yeah, I would like
Ultimately,
to know.
you're in charge.
But even so, even if that was all he really had to say, I don't know. You don't think that plays differently on television if during the impeachment trial they put the highest ranking general we've got on the stand and he says, yeah, I really thought this was the end of democracy. I mean,
I think that
they
might have mattered.
might still have voted no, obviously, because they want to end democracy when it comes to
Yeah, but it makes it more clear that
convicting.
that's
But
in
yeah,
fact
right.
what they're doing.
like, oh, this is bad.
I mean,
Voting
it
against-
saves 3 months.
Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, but on the other hand, book. So
Right. I mean, I
there's
I
a
don't
book.
begrudge reporters who don't get paid very much, and they don't. I mean, everybody thinks that everybody makes $1 gazillion. Not so much.
okay.
I don't begrudge them writing a book and then trying to sell it. There's going to be 30 books, and you'll decide which ones are good and which ones aren't good. I don't have a problem with that. Saving it for the book is a different issue.
Yeah, I mean, it could be like, now read the new
it's like
bestseller by the
Brown,
guy who...
Right? She wrote a book we talked about yesterday about Epstein. She didn't wait until the book to tell us.
Right. And why do you want to buy the Julie Brown book? Because she's the reporter who told that great story. I'd love to know the backstory of it. You're saving the front story. That's the problem. I want a book about backstories, not the story.
Yeah, tell us the story and then tell us how you got the story. Don't save the story for the book.
I'd be interested in that. Sure, absolutely. I don't know. It's big trend. That news is now published by people actually as excerpts of olds. It was news then. Now it's olds, but I'm writing in the book. It's news to you because I didn't tell you. Wow, that's a technicality, sir. You're not a news reporter.
Anyway, so, that's how I put all of these books about Trump in context here. I just wonder, who's telling the story and why are they telling it? And if you don't tell us that, it's not that good a book.
Yes. All right. I believe that.
Now, here's The Guardian with a
book.
piece that they didn't wait for a book to publish.
All right.
Kremlin papers appear to show Putin's plot to put Trump in the White House. Exclusive documents suggest Russia launched secret multi-agency effort to interfere in U.S. democracy. Vladimir Putin personally authorized a secret spy agency operation to support a mentally unstable Donald Trump in the 2016 U.S. presidential election during a closed session of Russia's National Security Council, according to what are assessed to be leaked Kremlin documents. The key meetings took place on 22 January 2016, the paper suggests, with the Russian president, his spy chiefs, and senior ministers all present. They agreed a Trump White House would help secure Moscow's strategic objectives, among them social turmoil in the U.S., and a weakening of the American president's negotiating position.
Well, I mean, it's news, and they're not waiting. Like, they just found out about these documents. But this too sort of feels like an old story. But
it does, doesn't it? Western intelligence agencies are understood to have been aware of the documents for some months and to have carefully examined them. The papers seen by The Guardian...
Are they going to write a book?
...seem to represent a serious and highly unusual leak from within the Kremlin. The Guardian has shown the documents to independent experts who say they appear to be genuine. Incidental details come across as accurate. The overall tone and thrust is said to be consistent with Kremlin security thinking, and the Kremlin responded dismissively. Now, part of the reason with everything else that's going on, this isn't going to be the bombshell that it would have been if it came out of the blue from nowhere. But it's interesting because some of the explanatory, wish it away thinking and explaining from MAGA world is that you have to understand that everybody's all into insurrection because we all know the Russia stuff was nonsense. And that's where it started, and that's when we lost faith in all of our institutions, and so everything followed. Mm-hmm. Well, what if it weren't nonsense?
Oh. Well, yeah, that'd be different.
What if the Mueller report actually said there's a lot of stuff here that was not good, and in fact people got indicted and convicted based on that?
I guess
that
would be.
But what if the basic premise, in fact, was true?
Yeah. Well,
what
I guess
if everything
wasn't
just based on the Steele report?
What if all of that was the case and Mueller still threw up his hands and said, "I don't know, you do it. I gotta leave." And then I would say,
that may be, but the point being,
you didn't even write
the logic that the Tucker Carlsons of the world and the Glenn Greenwalds of the world, take off from is, given that the Russia connection wasn't true, then it follows right?
Yes,
but it was true.
Yeah, well, maybe. I mean, I'm sure they'll spend the day. I'm guessing they're spending the day saying, "Really, you believe that they're just?"
Well, it was true before today. It's just this is more corroborative evidence. That's all. It's not the thing that proves it.
Yeah, the only thing they'll be able to hang their hat on is it is a little odd that it's like, that's weird. We just got a document from the Kremlin that says everything that you suspected that would make you think that the government of the United States was illegitimate and able to be manipulated from Russia is true, exactly in the way you described it. Here's the corroborating document. It's just been waiting to leak this whole time, but now it has.
Right. As
that is a
The
little
Guardian
difficult to
says, there
believe.
is no doubt that the meeting in January 2016 took place and that it was convened inside the Kremlin. An official photo of the occasion shows Putin at the head of the table, seated beneath a Russian Federation flag and the two-headed golden eagle. Russia's then Prime Minister, Dmitry Medvedev, attended, together with the veteran Foreign Minister, Sergei Lavrov. I don't know if Jared was there, but he could have been.
Sure. He was on the speakerphone.
According to a press release, the discussion covered the economy in Moldova.
That's what I guess I would say. Although, again,
I would have guessed it was about adoptions.
Oh, right, yeah. No, they hadn't come up with that excuse yet. But then, I don't know, you're telling me there's a photo of Vladimir Putin at the head of a meeting in the Kremlin? I don't know what that tells me exactly, but
right.
nothing.
No. Well, the reference report, sometimes you could say, look, this is ridiculous because on that day he was in,
True.
Kyiv doing
babies.
something else with somebody else.
Stabbing them with pitchforks.
He was in North Korea you could see him bathing with just his head above the water.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think anybody's
So,
disputing
I'm just
that he
saying.
was in Russia
the fact
at the
is
time,
that he had this meeting, and the fact is that the paper says that they have
that's something.
stuff from the meeting. So, okay, we'll see how that goes. It's just it's of interest simply because the whole gaslighting attempt on the part of MAGA world to try to pretend that nothing happened and you all are making stuff up and we're the true patriots is based on the fact that absolutely nothing happened with Russia. And that was the start of, I suppose, Hillary Clinton trying to figure out a way to plot, to conspire, to somehow get rid of Trump. She conspired to do that by getting more votes.
Yeah, I mean, it was the hidden plot to not let him win.
That was the hidden plot, yeah. The hidden plot to not let Trump be president was based on getting more votes and winning the election.
I spent a year and a half saying, vote for me, and then the last half of the year and a half was, vote for me as opposed to Donald Trump specifically. Well, all right, she was fairly open about it, I think.
Right. So, it's all of interest.
They debated.
So while all that stuff is happening, of course, we have politics. And part of the politics there is the Democrats came out with a $3.5 trillion budget, as the Times put it, to fulfill Biden's broad agenda. We're going to get a lot done, Biden said, as Senate Democrats began drafting the details on a social environmental bill that could yield transformative change. And so there's a lot to say about that. First of all, Bernie wanted $6 trillion. Manchin probably wanted $3.45. So they compromised on $3.5 trillion.
Okay. And
now that's not the number that it's going to be in the end. It's probably going to be lower, not higher. Even though progressives want it to be higher, not lower. Why? Manchin and Sinema. Well, what have they got to do with it? Well, the fact that the Democrats are actually showing that they can govern is really upsetting Republicans. We've talked about this ad nauseum on the show, but what that means is that the BIF, the Partisan Infrastructure Framework,
BFD,
which is a BFD with your BFF, means that you have to vote for something knowing that there's going to be even more money coming later, and Republicans will balk and won't do that.
Yes.
Even though everybody for a year knew this was coming, they've just discovered that this is here. So therefore, they'll say, well, we're not going to vote for that. The Mitt Romneys and the Rob Portmans will say, well, I can't do it. Fine. That means that all the proposals that are in the BIF need to be folded into the reconciliation.
REC.
Piece.
ONC.
Right? So, I mean, first of all, you can't pass it unless you come up with an acronym for it. That's just the rule. I didn't make the rules. Those are the rules. Yes. Secondly, if you want to do everything with reconciliation, it means you have to satisfy Manchin and Sinema. Now, you've done so by trying to negotiate with the Republicans so that they could show they weren't doing it in good faith. That's accomplished. You can check that box.
Yeah.
And now you have to pay for it. And so they're going to say, well, we won't vote yes unless you figure out how to pay for it, or at least satisfy us that you're doing it in some fashion. And then we'll say yes, and that means we get a lot of say as to how much. And whereas we, as we talked about the other day, are probably not going to tank the thing because that's a bridge too far. That's also true for Bernie.
The bridge, that's good.
Yeah,
That's
it's infrastructure.
infrastructure.
So the point is that something will come of this and something will pass. And Bernie Sanders, Joe Manchin, they're not going to be the ones with their thumbs down at the last minute saying the one vote that makes it that's not going to occur. So the question is, well, what will pass? Well, that's going to take less money than what you're seeing here. Although, if you had 3.2, if you had 3.1, it's an amazing thing that will happen and has a lot of it means stuff.
Yeah, we don't do a lot of trillion things.
Frequently.
3
right?
trillions, yeah.
So Liam Donovan, who's a Republican analyst, and I love following him on Twitter because, he's honest.
Well,
says this is where the cinema hasn't received. Burgess Everett was reporting from Politico. Cinema hasn't received the Budget Committee's $3.5 trillion proposal, but will review it based on what's best for her state and not the top line number. She, Manchin, and all 48 other Senate Dems will have to be on board to advance it. Well, we know that. And Donovan says that's where the deficit figure is important. It's much easier to keep them for a notional 3.5 ceiling, 3.5 trillion on gross spending if it comes with fiscal handcuffs in the instruction. This is what I'll be asking you after the break. What does he mean when he says there'll be instructions there about pay-fors that aren't specific but will determine the whole package?
I don't know.
And that you have to explain to. What does he even mean by instructions within the bill that give us details on how the rule's going to work?
Okay, I'll have to read that. Take a look at it. I think I got distracted by the handcuffs thing and said, "What?" Okay, fiscal handcuffs. There was fiscal cliffs. There's fiscal.
Right. He can lower the figure, or you can agree to it with the understanding that the offsets limit things in terms of how you pay for it. And that's what he means by the instruction. And I'm just trying to figure out what that means practically.
Hi, it's me, David Waldman, your host for Kagro in the Morning. I have good news to report. Many more listeners like you are making critical contributions that keep our show on the air. It makes good sense, of course, and patreon.com, Patreon.com, makes it simple. Now you can make easy, secure, recurring monthly contributions to support our show. Patreon.com/KagroX gets you straight to our donation page. Maybe you'd like to thank us for helping keep you sane during the Trump era. Maybe you're looking forward to in-depth explanations of what's going on in the Biden administration. Whatever it is that keeps you listening, we need your help to keep bringing it to you. And hey, if you happen to prefer using PayPal or even the Square Cash app, we're up and running with those options too. Thanks again, everyone, for all of your support. We literally could not do this without you. All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Networks Radio. We spent the break trying to figure out Liam. I don't know. It feels like maybe he's trying to hammer things into tweetable bits here and using too much lingo. I'm losing the thread of what he's trying to get at here, but maybe we can go over it again. I don't know. I'm not certain what he's talking about.
Well, basically what you need to do to satisfy Manchin, and let's assume for the sake of this discussion that the bilateral infrastructure framework fails.
Okay.
Because McConnell puts too much pressure on Republicans and they simply can't vote yes because that will mean that they're voting yes on something that Democrats are going to pass. And that's a bridge too far for them for infrastructure. Okay, let's assume that.
All right.
So you fold everything into the reconciliation, and now you got to get Manchin and Sinema on board. Easier to do because their efforts to corral Republicans failed. They tried.
Okay, right.
They tried hard. They tried in good faith. And Portman and a few of them tried in good faith, but McConnell didn't have good faith, and 10 Republicans didn't have good faith, so it couldn't be done. So now you have to pass everything within reconciliation, and that means that only within reconciliation and not the bilateral infrastructure framework, you have to figure out how you're going to pay for this stuff because Manchin and Sinema make a career of saying you have to pay for stuff. So now you have to put together the rule and this is where I get fuzzy and I'm using jargon that I picked up from David without really understanding what I'm saying. So you have to put together a rule that says how the framework of this reconciliation thing will pass, and what exactly is in that. How much of it is detailed, and how much of it is just a conceptual, here's the idea of what we're doing, let's vote on it.
Well,
that's my question for David.
If they're talking about, and I guess they're still talking about the budget itself here, and that will be just sort of a general framework. They'll include reconciliation instructions in it, and those instructions will be important, but they too will be general. They're just instructions to particular committees with a target of what sort of spending they ought to be doing, and what sort of, usually when it's reconciliations, what sort of savings they ought to be achieving. And only if you then meet those targets are you entitled to the procedural protections of a reconciliation bill when that comes around. But I think, he must just be talking about the case, the budget.
Then what they're doing is they're saying, okay, here's our rule, and the rule is going to say this committee, that committee, that committee, and this committee are going to have jurisdiction.
Yeah.
And so we would like you to come in at some target close to $3.5 trillion, and that's it. And then the details are in the committee, and then they can vote on that and say, yes, we passed it.
Yeah, they can. It's interesting that he's talking about the rule. So I guess I'm confused about what his jargon is, because of course they wouldn't be working.
Well, I brought in the rule. Remember, I'm the one who doesn't understand the jargon. I just say it.
Yeah, there's no rule for the Senate consideration of anything except for the lowercase r rules surrounding.
Right, I was using lowercase.
Reconciliation. Okay. Yeah, but at this stage of the game, when it's just the budget resolution, there's just not much detail. And working out how to get to the targets is the job of the various authorizing committees and appropriating subcommittees.
But again, just follow the logic here. So if that's true, there's really no reason why this won't pass.
No. And, I mean, if it doesn't pass now, that puts the brakes on everything, not just the use of reconciliation, but having a budget.
So this is going to happen,
for the next
and then it goes
year.
over to the House?
Yes. Well, yeah, I don't know I
Whatever
guess
this is.
Yeah. I mean, ordinarily the House might already have done its own budget, but they can do it this way. The budget is non-binding, so it doesn't really matter. It's not a spending bill per se, so you could do it in either direction.
Right. So, the reason that this is also confusing is that it's a terribly confusing process.
Yeah.
But there's so many different things here. There's the procedural stuff, which is we were just talking about. Then there's the politics of it, which is to say, just pass something, claim you had a win, then figure out what's going on. And then last, although you'd think logically it would be first, is the policy part of it, which is, okay, what's in the damn thing?
Yeah.
But that's last.
But yeah, I guess that explains I guess that's the reason why elected officials, members of Congress, are willing to view this whole thing as logical, to say, what I really care about is this number looks too big. You always think that's ridiculous. What are the priorities that we need to spend on? How much is that going to cost? Then tell us what the bill number is going to be. Not, all right, no higher than $3.5 trillion. That's the thing. Or in the olden days, hold the bill under $1 trillion. We can't have $1 trillion thing. I won't vote for that. But yeah, that's actually the way it rolls.
Bernie said 6, so let's do 3, because whatever it is they say, you have to do half.
Then that leads you to wonder, well, did Bernie really mean 6, or was he playing the game right? Well, I want 3, so I'm going to say 6, and I'm going to get 3.
Should have said 12.
Right. If you wanted 6, you should say 12. That's true. On the other hand, I'm sure he was like, well, if I can get 6, I'll take it. But
if I get 3, I'll take it.
And I don't know. Yeah, I'm ordinarily the normal process is, chairman of the committee says 3.5 trillion, and people like Manchin and Sinema say, no, it's got to be less, and then they go through the dance, and then it comes out less. But since this is not tied, quote unquote, not tied to the BIF, whatever. If that doesn't pass, then and people only, consider them together, even though they're not tied to one another. They might. In this case, you might see the number going up to accommodate what couldn't pass under the bilateral framework,
which is about $1 trillion.
Yeah, so maybe it goes up to 4.5, but then Sinema and Manchin say, well, something, we have to knock that down again. Yeah, I don't know whether it goes up from 3.5 in the end if the bipartisan bill doesn't pass, or stays there, or was never supposed to really be 3.5 trillion, so we don't know.
And because there's so many moving parts and we don't know,
yes,
that's why the impetus is to just put in some sort of framework so that we could pass it and say we won.
Yeah. And I mean, you can do that. You can just put out a bare minimum, a shell of a budget.
And now that we know that there's no bilateral thing here, and we don't have to consult with Republicans because they had their chance and they blew it, now we can go ahead and do this thing that we just said we were going to do, and we'll just do it our way.
I guess that's
and
true,
don't give me this garbage about bipartisanship. You had your opportunity to get your input, and you chose not to. So therefore, I can do things like Nathan Newman suggesting in Washington Monthly how to get labor law reforms past the filibuster. With creative cherry picking, you can put the PRO Act, the Protecting Right to Organize Act, into Senate reconciliation, and here's how. And then he goes into some details. I think the concept is more important than the details. But the point is that if you've got the Republicans to say no on the Best Friends Forever framework, then you can do stuff. You're free to do stuff because you had your chance and you didn't. So don't, give me a hard time about it. And we have the votes.
Okay. That's a concept we can go with. I hope it works.
That's how I'm expecting it to work out.
Okay.
I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me.
I don't think so. I mean, I don't know if it's really going to work because Sinema and Manchin and sometimes other people are really weird and they come up with dumb reasons not to do things. But that was the focus
what I'm
of the
saying
talk
is in this
yesterday
particular
from
case,
Biden.
again, going back to the Perry Bacon argument from yesterday,
PBJ,
they have argued against voting rights to the point where they're not in a position to argue about everything else that the Democratic caucus wants to do. The pressure is enormous. So something will pass. And if something will pass, their input will be how much money, not whether or not to pass it. And that's a huge different thing.
Yes, I guess so. Or at least it will either be how much money or how much of that is my money.
Yeah.
One or the other.
I mean, Sinema already said, I'm looking to see what's, good for my state. That's what she said. Yeah.
Well,
I'm reading that as, okay,
right.
What do you want for your vote?
We could throw in another $1 trillion to buy new voting machines for Maricopa County.
And now we're back to what John McCain used to call regular order.
Yeah, horse trading. Okay.
Which is called, earmarks.
Yeah. All right.
Trading. Exactly.
I think we have maybe straightened out what Liam is just, he's just too clever for us. He's very jargon focused this morning, but that might be he's trying to save characters. I don't know. Or I missed part of the conversation. But I think
that was the only conversation. So, I don't know.
I might have had it yesterday.
But that's where we're left with.
Yeah.
One more piece of politics here from Associated Press. The U.S. government begins depositing child tax credit money into the accounts of more than 35 million families. President Biden expanded the credit for a year as part of COVID-19 relief, so most families qualify for monthly payments up to $300 per child. Yes. As Congresswoman Shelley Pingree points out, every Republican in Congress voted against sending parents this relief.
Yes.
But wait. It isn't just that they're sending money to everybody.
Cool.
David Bergstein reports a new ad campaign targeted to key Senate and House midterm races touts the expanded monthly tax credit of up to $300 a child hitting Americans' bank accounts as a middle-class tax cut from DSCC, DCCC, and the Democrats.
I hope
Lauren
so.
Passalacqua. A very smart team effort by Dem committees here, as 90% of American families with children see the first monthly child tax credits hit their accounts, so no Democrats made this tax cut possible, and that every single Republican voted against it. Now, if that's the background, that Manchin and Sinema are wrangling to have influence on this reconciliation bill, that's not a bad environment to be in.
Yeah.
Democrats will be getting credit for helping Americans. And that's the background behind trying to decide just how much money and what should go in the reconciliation bill. That will pass.
Yeah. Well, that's an interesting proposal. What if they go out there and say, I'll sneak out there and say, Manchin and Sinema are holding this thing up because they want to know how to pay for it. And I guess the only way we're going to pay for it is, this is Manchin and Sinema's thought, I guess. And all the Republicans agree with them, but we'll see if we can change Manchin and Sinema's mind. But the proposal is we'll go back and take away that $300. We could pay for it that way. Are you guys for that? Or do you just think we should just go ahead?
Well, really the way to pay for it is to look at that 2017 tax cut that Republicans refused to look at, but that was in the context of the bilateral infrastructure framework, the BFF, the BIF. So if that's not on the table, you can go back and look at that 2017 tax cut.
Okay. Yeah, and then we wouldn't have to take your $300. Do you guys like that better?
Exactly.
Oh, we do, and there's many millions of us. Okay, right. I hear you.
There's room to work here.
I guess that's true. So we'll find out. I hope that I'll have to take a look at the ad and see if it's any more convincing. I will say that over the weekend, where I did see people saying, the Dems need to come out and say that they're, and really make a show of it. We're the ones helping you, putting this money in your bank account. And then I saw them actually, I guess, try and do that. And it was one of the most disappointing things I've ever seen in my life. It was this press conference in a room with like bare white walls, and they stuck a podium up there and put up a sign that had printed sign that said child tax credit on it, and they sent Jerry Nadler, Chuck Schumer, and Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez to the podium, which makes you think, okay, this could be a big deal. Nadler is like disheveled, and his shirt collar is sticking out from underneath of his coat. And Schumer is in shirt sleeves. And I see AOC just sort of standing there. She's like rocking back and forth like, I can't believe I got talked into showing up at this thing with these guys. I thought it was going to be a big production, and this was like a big splash. AOC, invited by Chairman of the House Judiciary Committee and Senate Majority Leader, two New York powerhouses, and they think to include me, finally, and then it's this thing like, is this in somebody's garage? Is there a microphone that works here? What's going on? It was like that. There they go, touting the $300 tax. The other side is telling you that there's cannibal vampires out to steal your children. I mean, that's bad and all. We shouldn't do that. But who are they going to pay attention to? The ones that doing that and storming the Capitol? Or there's Jerry Nadler out there saying, well, so long as every child qualifies, so long as the children have a social security number or the parents have an individual taxpayer identification number, as you see, or ITIN. And what we're saying here is the marginal rates of the... I'm falling asleep. Did you just say you were giving me $300? I should be interested in this. And what's going on with your shirt collar, sir? I don't know. I found that disturbing. I hope the ad will be better.
Well, maybe the ads will be better. Maybe Jerry Nadler won't be in the ads.
That
but, you know how it works.
Nice guy.
Democrats should really just make a point of all the stuff they're doing. Okay, we're going to put some ads on. Yeah, but I hate those ads.
Yeah, right. Well, there's that too. I get to see the ads.
We'll put other ads. Yeah, but you're not doing what I told you. Well,
And there's another criticism on top of that. I'll just try and sneak in. I think Will Stansel said it over the weekend. Is once again, it's an ongoing criticism of his, is that, again, Democrats sort of pin their electoral hopes to these indirect arguments of like, well, why should we vote for you? The other side says, cannibal vampires. What do you have to compete with that? Well, have you looked at your bank account? Is there $300 in it? Yes. Well, what? Well, we passed the reconciliation bill, sort of, kind of, almost did this way, and then the thing is, have you put this together yet? Because I'm having difficulty. The thing is, cannibal vampires. Well, that is wrong, but compelling.
Wrong but compelling, but
caravans,
right? Yeah. And caravans failed, right. And Ed Gillespie isn't the governor of Virginia.
That is true. It did not work.
A lot of this stuff is, well, why aren't you doing hard-hitting campaign ads a year and a half before the campaign?
Well, that's true. Yeah, and that's not going to do anything. I don't know. I worry, but that's the job of the show, is to worry.
No, I get it. I'm not criticizing. I'm just saying that, it's sometimes, when we do stuff, we criticize ourselves for doing the very things that we told ourselves that we should do.
Why do I do that? What? Yeah. Have I done it? Was that just it right there?
I mean, you said we should go ahead and tout this. Well, we are. Yeah, but you're not doing it right.
You're touting poorly.
Okay, fine.
Tout better.
Tout better.
All right. Well, yeah. It leaves something to be desired. But look, you do these things. That's the Democratic approach. Do good policy, and then people will support that. I don't know if that really works.
But it's also adult
doesn't
learning,
not work.
Which is repeat it. Start doing it now, so that by the time the election comes in a year and a half, you've heard week after week after week that we did
part
this
of it,
and then maybe it'll stick in.
Right.
Maybe you'll remember it by the time you actually have to remember to vote.
It's got to be better than putting $300 in your bank account and not telling you until the book comes out after the election, right? That's right.
Or we don't want to really, advertise it because that'll look partisan.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
It's not a mistake they're making, right? They may be making a mistake of not doing it as quality as you would hope they would.
Right.
But that's a different mistake entirely, and that can be rectified.
Okay. Visuals. I don't know. Certainly has to count for something. But, okay. Money, though. People will notice that.
This with the ad not even out yet, by the way.
Right. Look how much time we've spent on it. To all the 12 people listening. They're convinced. Exactly. Hello, everybody.
So, more politics here. Andrew Donaldson reports on a Newsmax story just out.
That's probably a true story.
Arizona Senate President audit finds Maricopa County discrepancy.
Congratulations.
This is the string-along portion of the con, says Andrew Donaldson, teasing what's been promised, but we can't deliver on it yet because reasons. Third paragraph reveals they won't say the number. Biden won Maricopa by 45,000. It's way under, or they'd be leading with it now.
I guess they would.
Right.
Well, all they
let me
said
just
was
put this in context, okay? Second piece, this is from Mark Nies, Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporter, and this is his tweet. For the Tucker Carlson crowd, this is the Atlanta Journal-Constitution reporter saying this, for the Tucker Carlson crowd, here are the facts about double-counted ballots in Fulton County. Nearly 200 ballots were initially screened twice before a recount that added 121 net absentee votes for Trump's total. And that's typically what happens. You get these recounts, and then you find there was a discrepancy of 31 votes.
Oh.
Not 45,000, 31, 121, 273, 174.
County.
I mean, those are typically the numbers you come up when you do the discrepancy counts.
Yeah, not much.
And unless you're talking about Gore v. Bush in 2000, typically not enough to really make a difference.
That's true. So I guess Tucker Carlson must have done something on his show yesterday saying that Fulton County, Georgia,
or even if he
cheated.
didn't, the concept, but what they're doing in Maricopa, is
different.
Firstly, nobody believes him anymore because it's a fraud.
Right.
And secondly, whatever number they come up with, we'll have to see whether or not it made a difference.
I guess so.
But that's not as important as the first, which is nobody believes him because it's a fraud.
Yeah. Well, that's key. They've done a good job messaging that one. I did see the other day, and I don't think we mentioned it, that, and I don't know, is this the result of it? You said this was the Senate leaders announcing this? Because I understood that after they were finally getting to the end of this crazy fraud.
You're going to make me read Newsmax?
Yeah. Well, not that one. You don't have to read that. But I saw a report elsewhere earlier, and I think I parked it. I'll have to dig it up, but yeah.
Republican Senate President Karen Fann said during a Tuesday radio interview, that was yesterday, that Tuesday, 2 days ago, that Maricopa County discrepancy prompted the state legislature to acquire new machines to recount the ballots.
Yes.
Fann added she didn't know the size of the ballot count difference.
All right. Yeah, that's the thing that they announced the other day, was that Cyber Ninjas was almost done with their fraud, and the reaction to that inside the Senate, the Arizona State Senate that hired Cyber Ninjas was, we are going to spend even more money now. We're going to buy machines that will count the ballots again. Now, the ballots were counted by the state and then recounted a couple of times by the state, and then they didn't like those numbers, so they hired Cyber Ninjas. Cyber Ninjas took 2 months to count what the state counted in a couple of days, and the result is we're going to spend more money to count them again, which I guess means that cyber ninjas either didn't come up with what they were supposed to come up with, or a traveling ballot counting salesman snuck into the Arizona State Senate and sold them a monorail and some counting machines.
Yeah, and land in Florida, which happens to be 1 foot underwater.
Yeah.
Jack Sellers, GOP chairman of Maricopa County's Board of Supervisors, told the Arizona Mirror in a statement he was not surprised that the state Senate's woefully underqualified audit team came up with a different ballot tally than the experienced professionals in his county's election department. Okay. And during the interview, Fan, who is the Senate president, acknowledged that things haven't gone as smoothly as it could have.
All right.
Now, you have to remember, I keep reading this and saying, what is wrong with her? And then I keep remembering Kelly Ward is the GOP chair there.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what's wrong.
They're a crazy
that
bunch
party
of people.
Is as crazy as the Texas GOP.
Yeah, and that's really
with
saying
Alan
something.
Who is now, no longer the chair, but still crazy.
Yeah.
After all these years.
Right, true. As it turns out, I guess they've hidden the story now behind a paywall. I'll see if I can find a non-paywalled version of it. But yeah, it was from a couple of days ago that the state Senate announced that they were buying machines to count ballots all over again. I don't know what they thought they paid.
That's in addition to having to buy new
voting
actual
machines.
Ballot counting machines because these have been tainted.
Yes, right. And they had a discussion of that yesterday, and the county is having to go ahead and buy new ones because the other machines, nobody.
We gave it to Cyber Ninjas, and we don't know what they did with it and what kind of software they installed on it. We have no idea. We have no way to know because they won't let us touch them, and they took the votes and they ran off with it to some cabin in Minnesota or something like that. We don't know what the heck is going on.
And they've been there ever since, I guess, because there's no news. They've been counting forever. And at some point, did they run out of those color-coordinated T-shirts? Are they washing those things? Do the workers have to do it? I don't know.
Right.
I'm curious about this.
Anyway, last piece before the end of my segment and the end of my segment for the week is from Dame magazine. Dame magazine. Nothing like a dame.
Oh, see,
The pro-life party's long fight against vaccines by Megan Carpentier. We urgently... No, that's not it. I will tell you, I had a mother last night come up to me here in Tampa, Florida, a Republican politician appearing on the Today Show said, and tell me that her little daughter took that vaccine, that injection, and she suffered from mental retardation thereafter.
What?
It can have very dangerous side effects, the politician added. While the anchors failed to interrupt the stream of falsehoods, the mother was crying when she came up to me last night. This is a very real concern, and people have to draw their own conclusion. Now, me personally, I read that and I said, I know exactly who that was and when that was and what they were talking about.
You do? Is it the 7-foot doctor?
That was Michelle Bachmann.
Yes, I knew it.
You could be forgiven for thinking that politician was currently in office and talking about COVID-19, though none is currently yet approved by the U.S. Center for Disease Control for children under 12, and none has been shown to have side effects remotely akin to permanent cognitive impairment. But actually, then Representative Michelle Bachmann made that statement during her ultimately unsuccessful run for the Republican presidential nomination in 2011, and she was talking about Gardasil.
Running in the wrong year. Yeah.
That protects against the human papillomavirus and thus cervical cancer, as well as vaginal, vulvar, anal, penile, and oral cancers.
Holy mackerel. What are you trying to do?
Right? She was, of course, hardly the only one. Between 2007 and 2012, the conservative backlash against a series of state legislative initiatives, often initiated by Republicans, to add Gardasil to one of a number of mandated vaccines for school-aged children, with all the normal opt-outs, showed a generation of ambitious right-wing firebrands that there was plenty to be gained politically by opposing public health initiatives in the name of parental rights and so-called liberty. Yeah. And it's just a good reminder that this pushback against COVID vaccine didn't start in 2020.
Right.
It started back with...
At least.
Guess who? It wasn't even Michelle Bachmann.
I don't know.
It started in Texas, where in February 2007, then Governor Rick Perry issued an executive order that all girls in the state should receive Gardasil starting in February 2008 unless their parents opted out. Opposition began immediately from groups like the conservative Texas Eagle Forum.
Oh, God, Eagle Forum.
Phyllis Schlafly's organization.
Did that
she was still alive at the time. Focus on the Family referred to HPV, that's the Gardasil vaccine.
Right.
In an interview with the Dallas Morning News, it's a purely sexually transmitted disease, and said the mandate was taking away parental rights, and offered angry Texans this gem. Does the public health industry truly believe that all children and adolescents are sexually active? This is not something kids are going to contract sitting in the classroom. No,
yes.
It's after school.
Right. I mean, I hope, quite honestly, although
I hope
some of the other kids probably wouldn't mind.
See, the whole concept here is that you're supposed to vaccinate people before they're sexually active because it works better.
Right. It does the
That's
whole
the concept.
trick
I mean,
ahead of time.
that's not made up stuff.
But Rick Perry was
but this goes back to Rick Perry and Michelle Bachmann and Phyllis Schlafly. And so that's the legacy by which you see the anti-vax movement glomming on to COVID's going to be a harmless thing, but the vaccine's going to kill you. That's where all this stuff comes from.
He was on the wrong side of that. That's, well, all right. And then he didn't become president, and
neither did Michelle Bachmann.
Right,
and
that's
yet,
true.
Here we are.
Neither one of them did. And Tennessee now makes it policy. That whole crazy thing has culminated in Tennessee actually doing this stuff, which also occurred to me yesterday. Tennessee is doing that which Ohio became a laughingstock for proposing just a few weeks ago. That whole crazy hearing about where people were saying that the vaccine magnetizes you was actually all aimed at getting the same broad, all vaccines, banned for adolescents, or at least the promotional work.
You can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been.
Yeah. Well, I didn't. And now I do, though. Does that count?
That counts.
Okay. Later, I will know where I'm going. Today, I didn't, because I didn't know where I had been. And now, I guess, you realize the true value of having this stuff come out in the newspaper instead of waiting for books. You can't know where you're going unless you know where you've been, but you can't know where you've been if the book doesn't come out until after you get there.
Yeah, we'll make a rule. We'll set a process, and then we'll work on policy later.
Right. Okay. Right. They should just put out the shell framework of a book, and I'll tell you what the details are. And
tomorrow we'll know where you went.
Okay. I guess so. Thanks, Greg. We'll check in with you again next week. How about that?
How about that?
You up for that? All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show here on Netroots Radio. Oh, looks like Brian Beutler reacting to this morning's Reichstag moment dialogue on Twitter. So, okay, well, as he says, I guess the generous view is that Milley doesn't have command authority, but he surely witnessed a lot and knows who has more information, and it's long past time for his testimony on the coup plot. I guess that's basically it. All right. Oh, yes. And other people enjoying last night's tweets about the idea of delaying the news that you need to know until too late. As I was paraphrasing and that was me playing off of Brian Beutler last night, so he's returning the favor, but me paraphrasing famous, crucial moments in history and imagining what if they had been saved for release until after book publication date, like FDR's speech to Congress following the attack on Pearl Harbor, right? December 7th, 1941, a date which will live in infamy, right? The United States of America was suddenly and deliberately attacked by naval and air forces, or the air forces of a nation you'll learn the name of exclusively in my new book, on sale this summer at a retailer near you. So, it could have worked. And I'm sure we would have gone to war just the same. We could have just simply passed a general framework for war and let Senators Manchin and Sinema fill in the name of the country against which we were declaring war at some later date. Under reconciliation rules, I guess. All right. Well, by the way, think about that, right? I don't know that they would have such great difficulty passing it necessarily, but if you're going to have a declaration of war after the attack on Pearl Harbor, and imagine writing up for the newspapers on December 8th as the proposal to go to war is made, the jury is still out on whether or not the Senate will be able to garner the traditional 60 votes in order to go ahead with the vote. Of course, we didn't have to get 60 votes at that time because there weren't 50 states and we didn't have 100 people in the Senate, and there was no 3/5 threshold for the for invoking cloture at the time either. The threshold was at that point 2/3, so you would needed 67% of the Senate, but we didn't have a 100-member Senate. So I don't know. Somebody would have to do the math at that. Were we 48 states at that point? I guess, right? I don't know. And so do the math and figure it out. But of course, nobody ever filibustered anything. But can you imagine a filibuster on the motion to proceed to the to debate on the declaration of war and whether the Congress would approve it? I imagine it was more or less unanimous at the time, but you never know. And these days, right? Well, it's true they bombed Pearl Harbor, but the president is a Democrat. We don't want him to be able to become popular enough to win 4 terms in office, so we'll oppose the war because then people will be with us. I don't know how modern partisanship would have worked out in previous times. And I did see a couple of interesting responses to that, too. Like one of the other moments I was thinking of and didn't really put the tweet together was the idea of like, well, okay, going back to the 1 if by land, 2 if by sea moment from Paul Revere's Ride. But I'll tell you how many lanterns there were in my new book coming out in spring of 1777, right? Okay, thanks a lot. Big help. All right. Let's see. Other stories to bring to your attention today. I mean, if it's really even worth doing, I still have to dig up that Arizona story. Where did that go to? I had it at first, and I read it, I was sure, and I don't know, maybe they paywalled it later on, but maybe I can Google something up about it. But Arizona Senate, the Senate was going to buy vote counting machines, like ballot counting machines, not vote tallying machines. But anyway, they were going to actually physically count the pieces of paper. How many were there? And what was it? Let's see. There's lots of news about it because I did mention that Maricopa County now faces this additional expense. $3 million they're going to have to spend on actual voting machines to replace the ones seized and tampered with by cyber ninjas. But that's the top news line. But that's not actually what I wanted. It was that the Senate, the state Senate, was going to spend, I don't know. And I see the Arizona Mirror piece that Greg was referring to about Fan saying that they were going to have a recount again. But yeah, where's this? I don't know. I'm going to have to go looking for it, and we'll have to do it after the show because this is killing me now. All right. Well, let's see. What else was in pocket for discussion today? Right. I put aside the thing that Greg hit that one too, the Fulton County thing. I wonder what the background is on that and whether Tucker Carlson must have spent time on it yesterday. Let's see. In fact, the fraud audit came up in the news again yesterday over at MSNBC, where Steve Bannon was discussing the latest developments in it. Congress raises stakes with examination of Arizona's sham, quote, audit. The utterly bonkers election, quote, audit in Arizona is nearly done, I guess. But as Congress launches an investigation, the larger controversy is just getting started. So yet another congressional investigation, which is fine. The more the merrier at this point. But they are going to investigate what's going on in essentially an investigation of what the Arizona Republicans would call an investigation of the election. An investigation of the recount of the election. Steve Bannon puts it thus: at first blush, Arizona Republicans' ridiculous, quote, audit of the 2020 presidential election ballots may appear to be an issue relevant only to the Grand Canyon state. It is not. On one side of the political divide, there are GOP officials from across the country who have been so impressed, believe it or not, impressed with Arizona's clown show that they want to duplicate the process in their own states in the hopes of further undermining public confidence in the electoral process. Most notably, I think, Pennsylvania, but there have been others. But when it comes to the national significance of the Arizona fiasco, there's a flip side. More than 2,000 miles to the east, a growing number of federal officials care about the sham audit, quote, audit too, CNBC reported late yesterday. Two top House Democrats on Wednesday launched an investigation into whether cyber ninjas, one of the private companies hired by Arizona Republicans to, quote, audit millions of ballots cast during the 2020 election, is working to, quote, more quotes, reverse the result of a free and fair election for partisan gain, unquote. House Oversight Chairwoman Carolyn Maloney and Representative Jamie Raskin, who leads a House Civil Rights Subcommittee, have asked the firm's CEO to send them a raft, very funny, raft of documents related to the audit, including information about who is paying for it. As Rachel explained on last night's show, that is Rachel Maddow, of course, the Democratic lawmakers made their inquiry to Cyber Ninjas, which again is the actual name of the strange company responsible for the Arizona Republicans' examination, by sending a letter to a rented mailbox at a UPS store in Sarasota, Florida, because that's how you get in touch with Cyber Ninjas, apparently, because that's how legit they are. Why didn't the House Oversight Committee send the request to the business's official address? They did. The rented mailbox at a UPS store in Sarasota, Florida is the Cyber Ninjas' official address. In their appeal to CEO Doug Logan, a figure with ties to the crackpot QAnon conspiracy theory, the federal lawmakers wrote, "We are concerned about your company's role in this highly unusual effort, given Cyber Ninja's apparent lack of experience in conducting election-related audits. Reports that the company engaged in sloppy and insecure audit practices that compromise the integrity of ballots and voting equipment and were questioned by the U.S. Department of Justice, and evidence that you and other individuals funding the audit have sought to advance the, quote, big lie of debunked voter fraud allegations in the November 2020 presidential election." They too have questions about who's paying for things, just as I still have questions about who's paying for, and did it happen, what was it, dispatching something like 50, or was that the number that they were doing in another state? But South Dakota's National Guard troops being sent right to the southern border in Texas to help, do something about border security down there, but it was all being paid for privately somehow by some possibly shady billionaire, maybe, sort of, kind of, but basically all there was his insistence that he was paying for it, and the state's insistence that they weren't going to tell you how much he had paid and whether it covered all the cost or anything else about it. Just don't blame me, don't blame Kristi Noem for wasting taxpayer dollars on it, because a secret amount of money has allegedly been given by a billionaire activist who's willing to say that he's the guy responsible for having sent it, even though he won't show us the canceled check to prove he did. We're just supposed to just believe it. But maybe it really was state money that was being used, and she's just lying. Or maybe it was Russian money that was being used, and they don't want to tell you that, because why not? Why wouldn't you? Why would you want to tell anybody that? I don't know. We don't know anything about it. Do I think it was really Russian money? That wouldn't be my first guess. But what I'm telling you is nobody knows. So maybe someone should find out. Anyway, back to Steve Bannon's discussion of Arizona. Americans' right to vote is protected by the Constitution and is the cornerstone of our democratic system of government. The committee is seeking to determine whether the privately funded audit conducted by your company in Arizona protects the right to vote, or is instead an effort to promote baseless conspiracy theories, undermine confidence in America's elections, and reverse the result of a free and fair election for partisan gain. That was a quote again from the article. But they too make a similar point, that this is privately funded. And I don't really know whether it is or it isn't, but I know that the Republicans in Arizona wanted to steer clear of being accused of wasting taxpayer money on, one, something so ridiculous, and two, something so partisan. So they too came up with a plan to say, well, we're only appropriating $150,000 for this job, which was never adequate to the task. Not with anybody who was qualified to do this count, and probably even more so for paying people who were not qualified to do the count, in that they would probably screw it up and insist on getting more money. Now, you know how long this fraud has been going on. Do you think that the $150,000 budget covered it? I mean, I could do the count for $150,000 and make a profit because I wouldn't count. I'd be just cheating. I'd be like, yeah, give me $150,000. I'll count the ballots. Now, how many ballots did you say you wanted to win by? All right. Well, that's what I found. But in order to make you believe I actually found it, here are some people in colored T-shirts, and we're going to wait a month. But whatever. Anyway, but I think the real thing that they also did mention, well, you know, no one knows the exact cost of this whole thing exactly, but apparently when the $150,000 budget runs out, we still won't be wasting taxpayer money on it because private money will be paying for it, and therefore it's okay. No, therefore it's actually worse. But there's also no accountability for it, and even if they are getting paid by private sources, that, you know, that's worse. Now aren't you going to give the client what they want? They're the ones that gave you they gave you $5 million. You don't think you're going to give them the result that they're asking for? That's the whole problem with having it privately funded. But that gets glossed over here. I don't know. I guess the committee will look into it. But anyway, they may be the only ones. The House Oversight Committee's letter, Bennon continues, is not exactly short. It's over 13 pages. So maybe they do get into some of this. And over the course of those 13 pages, Maloney and Raskin inquire about all kinds of strange cyber ninja practices, including inexplicable experiments with ultraviolet light and bizarre searches for bamboo fibers. You remember that one. Also of interest, of course, are possible communications between Logan, his operation, Cyber Ninjas, and Donald Trump's team, which has taken a great interest in Arizona's, quote, audit debacle, with the former president reportedly convinced that the process could help overturn his 2020 defeat. The lawmakers' document request concludes with a deadline. It rhymes, it looks like it, but it's deadline, July 28th. Well, you know, and if they violate the deadline, what happens? Nothing. I mean, well, we're going to sue for the right to subpoena you, or something like that. Anyway, if the committee uncovers evidence that laws have been broken as part of Arizona's process, lawmakers can, and almost certainly would, make referrals to the Justice Department. That's notable in large part because federal law enforcement appears to already be well aware of the controversy. So, I mean, I don't know. I that's supposed to make it sound better, I guess, but that's notable in large part because they're already aware of it. It's notable in the sense that what good would it do? They already are aware. But all right. Maybe the pressure increases along with a referral. As we've discussed, it was in May when the Justice Department's Civil Rights Division wrote to Arizona State Senate President Karen Fann, who's crazy and won't understand it, explaining that federal officials had reviewed news reports and complaints regarding the procedures being used for this audit, and was first concerned by a number of reports suggesting that the ballots, machines, and voter information are no longer under the control of state and local elections officials and aren't being kept secure and are at risk of being lost, stolen, altered, compromised, or destroyed. Folded, spindled, and mutilated as well. The Justice Department similarly reminded the Republican leader that federal law creates a duty to safeguard and preserve federal election records, and I guess you've failed in that. It was no small thing to see federal law enforcement warn Arizona Republicans that their sham, quote, audit may have violated federal laws regarding the mishandling of ballots and elections equipment. Attorney General Merrick Garland, you remember, he's the Attorney General, appeared to raise the stakes, at least a little, in remarks a month later on voting rights. Though Garland did not explicitly mention the Grand Canyon State by name, the Attorney General did say, in prepared remarks, Some jurisdictions, based on disinformation, have utilized abnormal post-election audit methodologies that may put the integrity of the voting process at risk and undermine public confidence in our democracy. By some measures, the utterly bonkers, quote, audit of Maricopa County's presidential ballots is nearing its completion, but given the interest from officials in D.C., it appears the controversy is just getting started. I'm just getting warmed up. Controversy-wise, anyway. So, okay, it's out there. It's in the news. And again, note to self, if I can remember, dig up, I hope, another copy, or at least, even if it's a paywalled thing, the Arizona paper's paywall doesn't even show you the headline and then say you can't have the story. It just goes right to this paywall page that doesn't even give you the title of the story. So it's of no help whatsoever. I can't even point to that and say, if you're interested, subscribe. You'll never know if you're interested, except by my telling you, I guess. In which case, they should be paying me for a percentage of getting you to subscribe. All right. Let's see. Greg mentioned the Guardian's work on the Kremlin papers that have leaked. I don't know, man. That's worrisome, to say the least. But maybe we'll just leave it at that, I think, for today, and read those things offline and make some decisions about how closely to follow that story. And maybe we'll see whether there's any more reporting. I'm glad the Guardian did it. It just does seem like that seems like something that is, somehow almost too perfect to find that out. All right, let's see. What other things we have? We've got this same excerpt that we've been talking about all day about General Milley's fears about a coup. I have memorialized both by the Washington Post and CNN, and both of them also included the quote of Milley saying, becoming aware of the possibility of a coup or a Reichstag moment and saying they're not going to effing succeed, which is a great mantra, really, and something that could become the motto of this show, right? We're going to give you a clear-eyed view of exactly what's going on in Washington and around the country. They're not going to effing succeed. They're going to get distracted by nonsense along the way. But that's what makes the show so fun. But I don't know. I feel like I should read through some of those things, but we're not going to get anything new. So we'll turn to a different extracted quote, I guess, or another book-related controversy, I think, right? I think this, too, comes from one of the new books. Which one is it? It is from Wall Street Journal reporter Michael Bender. So have we done this one yet? Here's the headline. CNN reporting this one. Devin Cole at CNN wrote this up. The headline says, Trump said whoever, quote, leaked info on his White House bunker stay. Does everybody remember what that was? That was the time he was whisked off to the bunker during the George Floyd-sparked protests, Black Lives Matter demonstrations, in this case the ones in Lafayette Square Park outside of the White House. And apparently it freaked him out so much that he was whisked out of the residence, I guess, and down into the emergency nuclear strike bunker. And everybody laughed at him for being such a chicken. And what a weirdo that he was actually so afraid that a Black Lives Matter protest taking place outside the White House was going to storm the White House and push their way in past all those police and bear spray all those police, and then sometimes be invited in as barriers are moved out of the way, and then they could come in chanting hang Donald Trump, and actually erect the gallows and then later say it was all just a joke. Well, or that they were regular tourists. Well, that would be crazy. Obviously, that's never going to happen, and no one would ever tell such a stupid story. But and it does relate to January 6th in other ways, like, for instance, the fact that there was a protest that was, I don't know. I mean, it's certainly peaceful compared to what happened on January 6th. I mean, I guess there's a sense in which you could say, well, it wasn't a peaceful protest per se. They were angry, but it wasn't a violent protest either. They weren't actually fighting cops out there until, of course, the cops just sprung on them and tear gassed them and whacked them and shot them with rubber bullets and said, get out of here, so that the, according to the White House, the fencing contractors could get in. But anyway, that protest would send him to the bunker, but the fact that the Reichstag, as they would have it in Germany, was actually under attack and had been stormed. And in the attack, they had cornered and threatened to kill the Vice President, Speaker of the House, and Senate President pro tem, not to mention anybody else they got their hands on. And that never sent Donald Trump to the bunker for some reason. But a Black Lives Matter protest with candles and stuff, that was what sent them down there. But anyway, that's not what the story is about. It's just the context in which we read this story. Whoever leaked the info to the press about his going to the bunker, what are we going to do about that? We should have an investigation, something like that? Somebody's going to get fired? No. Whoever leaked the info on his White House bunker stay should be executed, a new book claims. The book isn't claiming that they should be executed. They are claiming that Donald Trump said that they should have been executed. But I think that's a little bit of an overaction. But, while the door is open to people who should be executed, and we're talking about Donald Trump, see if you can put two and two together. That would, I think, maybe be the only possible answer to this ongoing insurrection. But we don't do things like that in this country because of our exceptionalism. Anyway, here's the story from CNN. Then President Donald Trump told a number of his advisors in 2020 that whoever leaked information about his stay in the White House bunker, which is linked to here, should refresh my memory about that. Whoever leaked that information in May had committed treason and should be executed. I mean, come on. Executed for sharing details about the episode with members of the press, according to excerpts of a new book, only just now revealed. The excerpts obtained by CNN from Wall Street Journal reporter Michael Bender. Trump, along with then First Lady Melania Trump and their son Barron, were all taken to the underground bunker for a period of time during the protests spurred by the police killing of George Floyd as protesters gathered outside the building. Bender writes in the book, titled, Frankly, We Did Win This Election, the inside story of how Trump lost. I recognize the title. We've definitely talked about it. Bender writes that Trump, in the days following his time in the bunker, held a tense meeting with top military, law enforcement, and West Wing advisors in which he aired grievances over the leak. Trump boiled over about the bunker story as soon as they arrived and shouted at them to smoke out whoever had leaked it. It was the most upset some aides had ever seen the president, Bender writes. Whoever did that, they should be charged with treason, Trump yelled. They should be executed, the book reads. Then White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows repeatedly tried to calm the president as startled aides avoided eye contact, Bender writes, adding that Trump's top aide told his boss, I'm on it. We're going to find out who did it. Did they? Did he fail? Or did he plan to fail, the whole thing? I don't know. Trump, angry over the leak for days, repeatedly asked Meadows if he'd found the leaker, with his top aide becoming obsessed with finding the source, according to the book, which noted that those who said they'd heard the president issue that warning had interpreted the outburst as a sign of a president in panic. Liz Harrington, Trump's chief spokeswoman, rejected the account in Bender's book to CNN on Tuesday, saying in a statement that the former president never said this or suggested it to anyone. CNN reported at the time that Trump had been taken to the bunker and was there for a little under an hour before being brought upstairs. A source familiar with the matter had also told CNN that if the condition at the White House is elevated to red and the president is moved to the Emergency Operations Center, Melania Trump, Barron Trump, and any other first family members would be moved as well. Okay. By the way, it just occurred to me as I was reading this, like, how did that come about? Like, the decision to move him to the bunker? Because there really wasn't anything that suggested at any point that anyone would violate the perimeter of the White House, the outer perimeter, much less, the actual building. So I was wondering sort of where the idea came from. But it occurred to me that might that be something like, is that something that like Stephen Miller would do? Like, why don't we move the president to the bunker and leak that we did move the president to the bunker so that it will trigger stories about how dangerous and violent the Black Lives Matter movement is. But instead it just backfired and made him look ridiculous and like a weird, weak, trembling freak in the White House. And I don't know, or maybe they did get to the bottom of who leaked it and they found out it was Stephen Miller, and they said, well, should we execute him for treason? At which point I finally say, I now agree with the Trump administration. He should be executed for treason. And they back off. That could be one explanation. Otherwise, he became obsessed with this and nothing came of it.
Hi everyone, it's me, Gil. Minimal contributor to content, but regular contributor to funding for Kagro in the morning. Let's change things up from David's so very tired plea for your contributions with a plea of my own. If you want to add your voice to the show, do it. Record your own segment using your favorite recording device and send it to David. Read an article and give your opinion. Write your own essay and read that. The sky's the limit. Well, not really. Try to keep it relatively short so David doesn't have to stress about cutting it and hurting your feelings. Join the hallowed ranks of Greg Dworkin and Joan McCarter and be part of this somewhat witty deep dive into political topics with unnecessary censoring. Lend your voice to the show by sending it to kagrox@gmail.com. KAGROX@gmail.com.
All right, welcome back now to the Kagro in the Morning Show on Netroots Radio. Let's see, what the hell were we doing before? Oh, yes, right, we were talking about the bunker situation, right? And I was wondering about whether or not they did, in fact, find the leaker and whether they would just pretend that they didn't if they found out or knew ahead of time that the leaker was actually one of their important aides. Just sort of wondering about that. Let's see. At the time, the White House had also cautioned staffers who had to go to work the Monday after the bunker was used to hide their passes until they reach a Secret Service entry point and to hide them as they left, according to an email which was viewed by CNN. Trump had attempted to publicly downplay the trip in the days that followed. I guess the trip to the bunker. Is that really the word you want to use for it? Seeking in a radio interview at the time to explain his presence in the bunker as an inspection. I remember that now. Rather than a retreat for his own safety. I forgot about that. Well, I mean, I didn't. I totally remember it. I didn't realize they were going to bring that up again. Okay. Anyway, I don't even know what to think about that, or the possibility that this too is all a show. While we were on break, I happened to see a Twitter note go by on a report from The Hill, noting that white flags on the National Mall will be erected to mark hundreds of thousands of lives lost to COVID-19. You know, a familiar protest and remembrance tactic at this point, which, you know, I'm like, okay, I thought that's interesting. By the way, I guess that gives me the opportunity to note before it happens, we are, according to Worldometers anyway, at 623,846 deaths from COVID-19 reported, according to, again, the Worldometers statistics. The Johns Hopkins University statistics tend to run slightly behind the Worldometers numbers. But I bring up the number specifically because we are nearing I think at 623,846. At 623,929 deaths, which were only some 83 deaths away, I guess, all of which could very easily be recorded today with the way things are going. We will match and then later surpass the entire population of the state of Vermont. Now, we've already passed the entire population of the state of Wyoming, which, as we know, has the lowest population of any state in the country. But our second largest state is coming up soon after that. It'll be some time, unless the Delta variant really takes off, among the unvaccinated in particular, before we reach the next smallest state, which offhand, I don't even know, was it North Dakota perhaps? But we'll take a quick look at the population figures in reverse order to give you some idea of how that goes. Yeah, 705,749 in the District of Columbia, which is not a state yet, of course, but I guess we can count them. And then it is Alaska at 731,545. So it'll be some time until we get there. We were originally tracking the death toll in comparison to the largest cities in the United States. And it's been some time since we had one of those. We're now getting up into the larger sized cities in the country, and we were last on number 29, Louisville, Kentucky, at 618,338 currently as the estimated population there. And next up in the order comes Memphis, Tennessee, but we don't reach that until 649,705. So it's we've got some space in between the cities in most cases. And, of course, the numbers are getting bigger and bigger. So in many cases, the leaps from one city to the next becomes bigger and bigger. That'll be the 28th largest city in America once we get to it, which also, I guess, brings us around to the other point of how many cities there are in America that have larger populations than places that have 2 senators, because they call themselves states instead. But that's a separate point. Anyway, I was vaguely interested in the actual mechanics of this remembrance. Hundreds of thousands of white flags will be placed on the National Mall to honor the lives lost to the coronavirus in the United States. And I don't know whether they're doing them on a one-to-one basis. Sometimes these protests go up, and each flag represents 100 people because they, I don't know, whatever reason they opt not to go with 600 and something thousand flags. That's an awful lot of flags. It gets expensive. Why white flags? I don't know. Maybe maybe the expense of getting American flags was too much. Maybe, someone didn't like the idea of it, or someone could desecrate those American flags. So they're going up with white flags. Maybe that's symbolic in another way, and that Donald Trump very early on decided to surrender to the virus, and this is the result. But, and I don't know. Anyway, hundreds of thousands of white flags will be placed on the mall. The project was announced on Thursday, and there's a link to, I guess, the announcement, by artist Suzanne Brennan Furstenberg, and is set to take place for 3 weeks, starting in September. I find that sort of interesting all by itself, and that's an unusual name. And is that person related to, wasn't it Diane von Furstenberg? But it looks like the name might be spelled differently, so maybe not. Yeah, Suzanne Brennan Furstenberg spells the Furstenberg part F-I-R-S-T, like first. Fursternberg, or Firsternberg. I don't know how you want to break that up, but I think it's anyway, Fursternberg, whereas Diane von Furstenberg was F-U-R-S-T-E-N-B-E-R-G. And then I couldn't remember who is Diane von Furstenberg and why do I know that name. Apparently a fashion designer, though, is the answer. And why was she famous? I can't remember. Let's see. Married to Barry Diller. There's that. But the von Furstenberg name came from being married to Prince Egon von Furstenberg, the only real-life Egon of which I've ever, I think, been aware. Interesting. Any connection at all? Did Suzanne just change the spelling of her name to simplify it, or does she have no relation whatsoever? I don't know. Any children? None directly. Okay. Just sort of curious. Anyway, I was also curious about, like, the idea of an artist coming up with this concept. I was like, I don't know. I don't know what it's going to look like, but, like, this has been done before many times. Flags, white flags, American flags, gravestones, the whole thing. And I was just sort of wondering, like, what's the, what barriers are we breaking with this art? But then it becomes art criticism, and I'm not qualified to do that. I just was sort of pointing that. And I guess another one of those questions about, how does this happen? Like if I woke up in the morning and I said, there really needs to be white flags for everyone who died from coronavirus put on a national mall. And it's not to say I wouldn't think of such a thing, even though it's totally unoriginal. But I would probably say, how they did that with, I don't know, all the other things, or AIDS. Sometimes they did that in protest of, inaction on behalf of the government or things like that. Or this happens all the time. And in fact, I think it's already happened for COVID-19. I guess, but my thinking on it would be, well, I could do that, but one, why would anybody want me to do that? And two, that would be enormously expensive. And I don't have money, to spend on making 600,000 flags. And I don't know about what's the process for getting a permit to do this thing. But anyway, it sounds like time and money that certainly a normal person, can't spend. And I guess then my question becomes, how does Suzanne Brennan Furstenberg get it together to say, yes, money should be spent on that? And will it be hers? Does she have a bunch of money? Did she get a grant? I don't know. Art is a weird thing, and so you can't really tell. I don't know what the release says. Now I'm curious about the release. Are you? I hope so, because I'm going to read about it. Let's see. It's over at inamericaflags.org. That's the name of the website, inamericaflags.org. In September, this art exhibition will blanket the National Mall with over 600,000 white flags. They're going to do them individually, showing the magnitude of our loss as a nation while honoring each person who has died from COVID-19. Okay. You can visit this immense field of flags on the National Mall in Washington, D.C. from September 17th to October 3rd, 2021. Visitors will be invited to personalize flags for someone they have lost. Maybe that's how you pay for it. Those who cannot visit in person can dedicate a flag on this website, and it will appear in physical form on the National Mall. Then there's an aerial shot of the area in which they're going to place those flags, which I guess if you're looking from above with the White House to your left, I guess, and the Capitol on the other end over to the right, this would be just north of this. Oh, no, I guess the White House is just north of the Washington Monument where this would be placed. So it's somewhere in between I guess that's the ellipse where they had the rally on January 6th, ironically enough. And, okay, so that's the area. You can take a look at yourself. The exhibition will be from September 17th to October 3rd. You can dedicate a flag. And does it say that are they collecting money from any of this? I don't know. You can share your special memories of the person and upload a picture or even a website link. Anyway, the history of In America, you can find out also on the site. I'm actually sort of interested in, like, how does this happen? And do they do only flags? Do they do this over and over again? I'm just curious. And, I don't know, man. You tell me. Let's find out about the artist, too. Suzanne Brennan Furstenberg. There ain't much. There's a bunch of pictures of her. That seems to be it. So, maybe, they could fill in a little bit about who's you. I don't know. Maybe Wikipedia will tell us, or you can visit Suzanne's website, I suppose, to find out more about her. But also information about In America is down at the bottom, and I guess they do flag things all the time. And I don't know, they remember various things by putting up flags. I don't know. We'll have to learn more about them at some point. I'm sure it'll make a very interesting inquiry. Maybe during a pre-taped show at some point, we can check into that. All right. We lost track of the real, story arcs of the day. I just thought that was kind of an interesting diversion, and it makes you think, but usually not charitable thoughts every once in a while when somebody does something like this. And that really shouldn't be where your mind goes. You should be, of course, busy. I guess they're counting on you being busy remembering all the people who died, not wondering who's paying this lady to put up flags. And maybe nobody. Maybe she's wealthy and she's just doing it for the hell of it. All right. Where were we with the rest of this stuff? Things we wanted to bring to your attention after Trump saying that he wanted to execute people, et cetera, et cetera. New entry in the people who have sacrificed their careers to either on the altar of Donald Trump or as a result of realizing that Donald Trump was a jerk and an a-hole, losing their careers. The Detroit Free Press reporting the latest casualty. Michigan GOP executive who blamed Trump for election loss, like actually said he lost and it was his own fault, resigns from leadership post. A Michigan Republican Party leader, that's what he's the executive of, who faced grassroots pushback after saying the 2020 presidential election wasn't stolen and blaming ex-President Donald Trump for the loss, has resigned his position with the state party. He doesn't blame it on that, but that's apparently the truth of it. Jason Rowe confirmed Wednesday he had stepped down as executive director of the state GOP, but declined to provide a specific reason for the decision. I resigned my position as executive director, and the reasons will remain between me and Chairman Weiser, Rowe said in a statement to the Free Press, referring to Michigan GOP party chairman Ron Weiser. We've built an amazing team, and I know they will be very successful in 2022. I look forward to helping however I can. I just can't help here anymore because I said Donald Trump lost. And that's that. So just, adding his name to the roster. I don't think that there's much more that we need to read about. And apparently it did come first from The Atlantic, which I think was doing a roundup of all the people that they knew of to that point who had been forced out of their jobs because of this. And it was behind a paywall, and I don't think we got to that name before. So we'll just add that one to the list. And, I don't know. What do you want to do with that? Another story I wanted to bring up the other day was Amanda Marcotte writing at Salon about Trump supporters and, the roles that they play in these crazy situations like the insurrection of January 6th, et cetera, et cetera. She had an interesting take on this stuff, and I thought I might read through it and see whether we agreed. Trump supporters think they're players, but they're still just pawns. Interesting. The best grift, the subheader reads, works by convincing the mark that they're part of the con. And the teaser of this, which got me interested in it, was, I guess, a tweet saying that, I guess apparently a number of Trump supporters about whom we very frequently ask, do they really believe this stuff, had at some point given a wink to people and said, no, I know this is all BS, but I'm in on it. And then it would turn out that it was that much deeper than they originally thought, and they weren't really in on it, but they never come to that realization. So here's the argument, put more coherently, I assume. Do Donald Trump supporters actually believe the big lie? We know they certainly like telling pollsters they do. The latest polling from Monmouth University shows that 63% of Republican voters continue to insist that Joe Biden only won the 2020 election because of voter fraud. But is this something they really believe, or something they simply say out of tribalist loyalties because they believe that repeating the lie is useful justification for the GOP war on voting? It's a good question. On Sunday night, we got strong evidence that for the most part, Republican voters understand that the big lie is indeed a lie. They just repeat it because they view themselves as co-conspirators in perpetuating it. In his speech at the second annual, and it's put in quotes here, annual, because as we remarked the other day, we didn't know why they were doing it, CPAC meeting in the summer when they usually meet in the winter, right, in addition to their winter meeting. So in his speech at the second, quote, annual Conservative Political Action Conference of the year, the second annual one of the year, Trump bragged about how he lies about polls and elections when he doesn't win them. And I saw that bit, and I didn't really, I decided not to talk about it too much because although it was kind of funny and freaky to see him actually admit out loud how he lies, it was pretty clear that he was, he was joking about it. It's not that he doesn't do that thing. It's that he was approaching it in a joking way. That's sometimes one of the mechanisms he uses to cover up the actual, horrific criminality of the whole thing, is that he says it in a jokey way and then can later say, I was just joking, even though that was actually an accurate description of what he does. And maybe that was what prompted her to write the piece, that, people think they're in on it because they laugh because they know that he's really doing those things, but he's saying it in a jokey manner and will later say that he was just joking when in fact he was telling the truth and laughing about it. But anyway, on Sunday night, right, we got strong evidence that for the most part Republican voters understand the big lie is indeed a lie. They just repeat it because they view themselves as co-conspirators in perpetuating it. And then he brags about the lies about polls. You know, they do that straw poll, right? Trump asked, referring to the 2024 GOP nominee straw poll that CPAC conducted of attendees, and has always conducted, right? And then he says, if it's bad, I say it's fake. If it's good, I say that's the most accurate poll perhaps ever. And everybody chuckled and laughed along. And I get you. And yes, by the way, I now note the comment. Thank you, Karen. This is a good pull quote for the show, right? This is totally unoriginal and uninteresting, so I'm going to read about it for 10 minutes. You got me. The Hill does that to me all the time, of course. But one of my favorite things to do is complaining about people who make it into the news doing stuff that doesn't belong there, but we pay attention to it as if it was news anyway. And it counts in my mind as, or after the fact anyway, to justify what we're doing, as media criticism. It can't be art criticism because I don't know what I'm talking about, but media criticism. But the whole radio show started on that basis, actually, at some point. Wasn't it that years ago I was listening to the radio and they were doing a news roundup? And this was on the allegedly progressive station, back in the days when they had like Air America radio. So on the allegedly progressive Washington, D.C. station, they were doing a news break, like a top of the hour news roundup. And it included the news that one of the fast food chains, McDonald's, Wendy's, I don't know, was discontinuing their spicy chicken sandwich. And I thought, how did you fool? I mean, here we are listening to a progressive news station because we're tired of being fed stupid corporate news, we say to ourselves. We want the real stuff. And they're still telling us that the news is that somebody's discontinuing a spicy chicken sandwich. How did we get to this? And, I guess same thing, right? I don't know. Well, not like we respect the Hill as a news outlet or anything. I don't know, just one of those stories. Like I said, I have a large file of why do I get up and do things in the morning? There are so many people out there who, and I guess I would be an early riser too. I'd be a morning person if when I said things like, you know what I should do? I should put 600,000 white flags on the mall to show everybody how many people have died because that'll teach them. Then they'll get the vaccine. No, they won't. It's not going to do anything. But, people will be interested in dedicating flags to their loved ones that they lost. That might be a thing. Maybe we could do it. Go ahead. We'll fund the whole thing. And I guess if people told me, when I had a brain fart like that they would fund it, I'd be an early riser too. What a great day. I can't wait to get started. Somebody's going to fund all the dumb stuff I do. And I guess to a certain extent, I'm in that position now. It's just that I am not making huge gobs of money to do it. It's actually, just barely paying for doing it. But maybe they're only just barely breaking even on the Furstenberg front, too. All right. Now that's 11 minutes. Sorry, Karen. Back to the organized thoughts of Amanda Marcotte. I ruined the whole thing by disorganizing it, but okay. So there you have the joke thing of Trump admitting while laughing what he really does with polling. The humor of this not actually a joke is due to being a sly reference to the big lie, an admission on Trump's part that he didn't win 2020 and is merely saying otherwise for political gain. And it's no surprise that Trump went there. He loves to brag about how much corruption and crime he gets away with. Linked to proof, in case you were wondering. What is perhaps more important is the audience's reaction to this not a joke. Trump got a huge laugh from the CPAC crowd, despite the death and destruction the big lie has already caused. As the clip went viral, there was no outraged reaction from GOP voters, no anger that he lies to them in order to enlist their support for an authoritarian coup. Trump supporters aren't mad about Trump admitting he lied for one simple reason. They don't think they're the ones being lied to. They think they're in on it. They know why the big lie has been propped up. First, to justify Trump's failed coup, and now for the ongoing efforts by the GOP to steal the next election. They see themselves as co-conspirators and thus knowingly laugh at this in-joke about the conspiracy. But just because the typical GOP supporter thinks he's in on the con doesn't mean he's not the dupe. On the contrary, Trump and other right-wing leaders deeply understand the adage that you can't cheat an honest man. Letting GOP voters believe they're in on the authoritarian schemes is the way that Trump and other leaders trick these folks into being their pawns. This was clearly illustrated by another disgusting moment at CPAC over the weekend when Alex Berenson, the anti-vaccination conspiracy theorist, celebrated his success at persuading so many right-wing Americans to reject the shots that have otherwise proven successful at safely preventing COVID-19. The government was hoping they could sort of sucker 90% of the population into getting vaccinated, Berenson said, and it isn't happening. I'm just one of a handful of commentators, Amanda says, who have been saying for months, as Brian Beutler of Crooked Media noted in his latest newsletter, that the right would try to sabotage recovery from the plague under a Democratic president. In this view, every transmission, every hospitalization, and every death is a victory because it keeps COVID-19 in the news and denies Biden his ability to say he beat it. And if they have to use their own bodies to make that happen, well, so be it. That may sound paranoid, but as Beutler points out, these are the same conservative leaders who, quote, sought to destabilize the Affordable Care Act's marketplaces by encouraging young people to forgo health insurance altogether, to accept enormous personal risks for the good of the larger goal of damaging the Obama presidency and discrediting government for the common good. Killing people, even their own people, is seen as an acceptable price to pay for partisan warfare. Again, what is telling is the crowd's reaction at CPAC. Cheers and applause. They're thrilled at their success at undermining Biden's goals and delighted that case counts are rising in red areas of the country. This reaction shows that for conservatives, refusing the vaccine is really more about being part of a larger war to undermine Biden's presidency and not so much the result of sincere concerns about the vaccine's safety. Of course, refusing the vaccine means offering your body up to a virus that can be extremely brutal and is often deadly. But conservatives are too tickled by getting one over on Biden to pay attention to the fact that they're the ones taking the serious physical risks. Once again, the best grift works by convincing the mark that they're part of the con. The martyrization of Ashley Babbitt is the grossest, most obvious version of this. Babbitt's history of online delusions suggests she may have been one of the rare right-wingers who really was duped by the big lie. Either way, she's dead now, and it's all Trump's fault because he's the one who incited the insurrection that led to Babbitt dying. But Trump, sociopath to the core, has no remorse. Instead, he's cynically exploiting her death, a death he caused, by propping her up as a martyr to convince others to follow in her footsteps and to die for the big lie. Well, there's a little bit more here, and we could finish it out. But I think, that was an interesting turn that it took, and I think it's worth pointing out that that's a developing story that they're still working on propping up, the martyrization of Ashley Babbitt. But actually, I would have probably ended the reading from the story just before that, and just talking generally about people thinking that they're part of the con and offering themselves up in their own bodies and damaging and possibly even dying just to make this point. Although, why they don't just submit fake tests, I don't know. I mean, I guess I don't want to give them any ideas, but why don't they find somebody who actually does have COVID-19 and take 100 swabs from them and then put their names on it and say they could just go around saying that they have COVID. In fact, they could go ahead and get the COVID vaccine if they're really afraid of it. Why do they actually have to get it in order to prove the point? I don't know. If they're going to steal the election, they could steal the statistics on COVID as well. All right, time for us to cut out here and hand things over to Justice Putnam for the West Coast Cookbook and Speakeasy. Both. It's got both involved in this. We'll be back tomorrow to wrap up the week. But let's see if he can't wrap everything up and deprive us of the opportunity to do it first.
You have been listening to Kagro in the Morning with David Waldman.
Let's get down to the international part today, just to give you a flavor of what's coming up. The United Kingdom will ban online racists from soccer matches after the lawlessness connected to Britain's loss at the Euro 2020 Championship. Oh, and the Bosnia intelligence chief has been detained in a money laundering probe. Interesting.